The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is no substitute for professional care by your doctor or your qualified healthcare professional. Never disregard or delay professional medical advice because of something you've heard on this podcast or in any linked material. Guests who speak on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Shirley neither endorses nor opposes any particular opinion discussed on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, practice, institution, or other entity with which Dr. Shirley may be affiliated.
Welcome to Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty. This podcast is curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD, as the definitive source of holistic wellness through beauty.
Hey everyone, it's Dr. Shirley. Welcome to 15 Minutes of Fab, a segment of the Forever Fab podcast where I review products, services, experiences, and frankly, whatever, in 15 minutes or less. If the full-length podcast is a couture dress, for example, then 15 Minutes of Fab is like a button-down French cuff white shirt paired with leather leggings. If you don't have time to tune into the full-length podcast, then check out 15 Minutes of Fab, just a small dose. Some have considered it truth and beauty or plastic surgery secrets or as a nerdy or academic take on wellness and beauty with a dash of fashion. Consider it what you may. My aim is to engage you as a credible and authoritative voice in most, if not all aspects of beauty and wellness with a dash of fashion. That includes products, wellness services, technologies, innovations, new scientific research, and plastic surgery. As the founder of Holistic Plastic Surgery, my approach to beauty is through a lens of wellness that's grounded in science, backed by medical study and research, strengthened by my clinical experience, and bolstered by my surgical training with the use of principles and techniques of plastic surgery. And then there's my love of fashion, of course. I feel uniquely qualified to talk with you about beauty, wellness, aesthetics, and plastic surgery, as well as products and services within those spaces, not only because of my extensive, and may I add, expensive training and expansive background, but also because I'm one of you. Many of the human issues around aging and being a fierce fab person, as well as an agent for positive change, I live these too, and I try. You're not alone. So together we can help the world become a more beautiful, forever fab place. So if you'll have me and give me at least 15 minutes of your time, let's get at it. In this new year, I've decided that it will be one of expansion and discovery. So I'll explore all sorts of topics, near and possibly far-fetched, while still focusing on the topics that make the Forever Fab podcast, well, fabulous, namely fashion, the art of living well or wellness, and beauty. As part of my philosophy of holistic plastic surgery, which I created well over probably now 15 years ago, where I believe that beauty emanates from within, wellness plays an integral role in my practice, and this goes for many aspects of life that help you to live in grace and beauty, including nutrition, exercise, products, services, technologies, mind, body, spirit, and science. This episode of 15 Minutes of Fab is dedicated to how the present influences the future. And the title of this episode is The Future of Wellness, What Was, Is, and Will Be. The topic explores McKinsey's recent report on the future of wellness. And if you like numbers and forecasting, then this is the podcast episode for you. On today's episode of 15 Minutes of Fab, I'll summarize the latest McKinsey report on the future of wellness. And that report is entitled, The Trends Defining the $1.8 Trillion Global Wellness Market in 2024. But first, a bit of background info. Who is McKinsey? According to Wikipedia, quote, McKinsey & Company is a worldwide strategy and management consulting firm founded in 1926 by James O. McKinsey himself that offers professional services to corporations, governments, and other organizations. McKinsey is the oldest and largest of these alleged so-called Big Three management consultancies, end quote. That word alleged was added by me. The entire thing otherwise is a direct quote. Next question. How was this information collected? Well, the research is a survey, and it's based on more than 5,000 consumers across China, the United States, and the United Kingdom. The authors of this research drew their published conclusions on this data, and they applied it to 7 subcategories of wellness. That's how we get these numbers based on these 5,000 surveys. They estimate that in the US alone, quote, the wellness market has reached $480 billion in the US alone and is growing at 5 to 10% per year. 82% of consumers now consider wellness a top or important priority in their everyday lives, and Gen Z and millennial consumers are now purchasing more wellness products and services than other generations. End quote. Why should I believe McKinsey? Well, you don't have to, but the information is pretty interesting, and it would make for entertaining dinner or cocktail party conversations, I think. So, if you're still listening, then I'll assume you're interested. So here we go. These are the top 5, I guess another kind of Fab 5, but these are the top 5 trends that will mark the future of wellness in 2024 and beyond. In summary, the McKinsey reports the following, and I quote directly and read verbatim in some places. Number 1, health at home. People are preferring DIY diagnostic tests rather than going to the doctor. Remember those COVID tests? Yeah. Well, the trend has caught on and is here to stay. Number 2, wearables. Actually, I just got an Apple Watch, and all I use it for is time and health data. Who isn't interested in knowing themselves better by examining their biometrics such as blood glucose, heart rate, sleep duration? I love that stuff. Now, what you do with that data is another story. And if you act on that data, that's yet another story. But nonetheless, wearables, they're a thing, they're a trend, just going to increase. Number 3, next level personalization. This means buying products and services that use your biometric data to help inform what your choice should be. And much of this will be accomplished using generative AI or Gen AI. Now, for a primer on AI, listen to my podcast episode on the good, the bad, and the not so pretty aspects of AI. That was a previous episode. Number 4, clinical support. Consumers are shifting away from clean and natural and, woo-woo and services to those that are science-backed and clinically proven to be effective. Now, that isn't always easy because you have to know that in order to get clinical data, science-backed, scientific data and research papers, etc., that costs a lot of money. So that may be prohibitive or restrictive to a lot of brands that are coming out, because to be able to pay for that those studies and that research, it can be really exorbitant. And this is especially relevant, the clinical support is especially relevant for over-the-counter products in the spaces of superfoods, personal care, and supplements. Okay, take vitamin C, take vitamin D, but why? Where's the data that says that everybody should take it? If I have a deficiency, I get it, but just every day, all the time, in general, for relatively healthy people whose, blood work check out pretty fine, where's the data? People are asking. And number 5 of the top 5 trends from McKinsey's wellness report, doctor recommended status. Well. It seems that the pendulum has swung in the other direction. I can remember not so long ago, people didn't trust the doctor. Now, the trend is that the doctor recommendation is not only back in favor, but it's also on the rise and, in fact, trusted. The report states that, quote, doctor recommendations are the 3rd highest ranked source of influence on consumer health and wellness purchase decisions in the United States, end quote. Look at that. I'm an influencer. I wouldn't have even thought that, but I'm an influencer. The report concludes with an examination of 7 areas of potential growth in the wellness industry. So these are the things to look out for. And they are, number one, women's health, specifically menstrual care and sexual health products. Number two, healthy aging and longevity. Remember my podcast about longevity and the blue zones? This trend is supported by an increased interest in preventive medicine and health technology. To succeed in this market, Mckinsey recommends that companies, quote, take a holistic approach to healthy aging solutions, end quote. It seems that when I created the philosophy of holistic plastic surgery over 15 years ago, I was ahead of my time. Look at that, McKinsey report, recommending to companies to take a holistic approach to healthy aging solutions. Okay, Dr. Shirley, an influencer, a maverick, a trendsetter, an innovator. Keep it coming. I like it. Okay, number three, weight management. From exercise to the ever popular GLP-1 or glucagon-like peptide 1 drugs, weight loss is a major focus of today's consumers. I caution, however, as does this research, interestingly, that the field is still in its infancy. And so we don't know yet how these drugs will affect future health. Number four, in-person fitness. There's something to be said for sweating with a group of like-minded people. The social aspect of fitness is coming back. I like group classes. I do. Number five, gut health. The microbiome is still being studied, but definitely it's well known to play a significant role in our health, all aspects of our health. Number six, sexual health. We're talking about sex, baby. And consumers are buying products to be, dare I say, better in touch with themselves and their partners. Bing! That's a little bell for a wink. And finally, number seven, sleep. This area requires perhaps the most ongoing research since so many factors affect how we sleep. I've discussed these on a previous episode of the Forever Fab podcast, and if you care to listen to that, visit the foreverfabpodcast.com. That's foreverfabpodcast.com to listen to those past episodes. This summarized the recent McKinsey report and the wellness trends that will shape 2024. And this episode also concludes now. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Forever Fab podcast, specifically 15 Minutes of Fab. As always, stay beautiful and forever fabulous inside and out. If you're interested in reading the entire Wellness Trends report, download it at mckinsey.com. Did you learn something new today? Share on social what resonated with you most using one word and tag the Forever Fab podcast. If you like this episode of 15 Minutes of Fab on the Forever Fab podcast, please share it and subscribe to the feed. Listen to past episodes or check out what's coming up next on foreverfabpodcast.com.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty, curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD. Live beautifully and help make the world a more beautiful place.